All right, next verse. Let's skip over the highlighted parts because they're a little different. Here, we know that we have two independent clauses, so I'm going to put a line break in the middle and mark them. How do we know? Because they're joined by a coordinating conjunction. You can do it the other way. You can find the coordinating conjunction and then split them up. I feel like I'm on a cooking show. This is what happens with Rachel Ray. Let's take a look at this one because this is a little more complex. Not for the subject. The subject's still very simple. But the verb phrase is much more complex. So what's it made up of? Well, from quiz number 2, we know that this am here is an auxiliary verb. It's a tense auxiliary. So we're going to label that as T-aux. It's a tense auxiliary, and this one here is going to be, and I didn't ask you to label these in the quiz, this is a main verb. So I've got T-aux and MV, all as a part of the big verb phrase. Now, I want you to practice labeling all those parts, not because I think it's really good for your soul or anything like that, but because it makes it very clear what you're looking at, and it makes it clear to me that you understand what you're doing. It's repetitive. This is a repetitive assignment, but what we need it to be able to do the rest of the course is to practice, for you to be able to look at a sentence and say, oh look, there's the auxiliary, there's the main verb, we're all set. I know that I'm looking at an independent clause or a dependent clause. I know that I'm not looking at some kind of sentence modifier, which is something that we're going to see a lot of next week. Okay, so I've got all my pieces. I've got an independent clause. This one here I'm not going to mark right now because it's pretty straightforward. You've got the subject here and the verb here. The verb, actually I should do this. The verb is conflated. So we could call this, there's no auxiliary, but we could do, if we wanted to, if you want to be absolutely thorough about it, you could do it like this. TV is tensed verb, MV is main verb, and that says you get the tense and like the content in the same verb. Okay, here in this last line, see where my cursor is, we have a different kind of situation. Again, we have the subject, we've got an auxiliary, but it's a different kind of auxiliary. This is a modal auxiliary. So what we're going to do, is label it M-aux. Modal auxiliary, and that tells us important things. Having a modal auxiliary like this rather than a tense auxiliary like this means that the verb is not going to be conjugated. Remember that? So it's still going to be a main verb, but it doesn't have to have an ing ending or an en ending. So you would never see may been, right? So this is a good example of how we're still marking both the things up, and let's underline them both so we know that they're connected. But there are different types of auxiliaries have different consequences for the main verb that follows them. Okay, so we see the two examples here. Okay, got another independent clause, so we'll insert another line break. Here again, we've got the conflated main verb and tense verb. So TV, MV, and I could have done all those markings on the thing up here as well. What else? I think that's all. These are the basic things that I want you to do. Now that's the basic labels. Independent clause, dependent clause. You're marking your conjunctions. You're marking your subjects. You're marking your verbs. What you're looking at is incomplete. I want every sentence to look like this one. Whoops. I'm going to highlight it. No, I'm going to make it red. Because this is, no, not red. Let's make it green. Because that's the gold standard. That's what I want. That level of detail in your markup. Okay. Let's look at these highlighted sentences. The first one is questions. So we can take off this first. We can put in an or. And that's a coordinated conjunction, which means these two things belong together and they go with this verb down here. So the verb is, the main verb is want. The auxiliary verb, and we saw this in the list, is do. So I'm going to take the highlighting off because I think it's difficult to see. Bet you're learning lots about Word. Isn't that great? So let's call this a tense auxiliary as well. Really, the only modal auxiliaries that we have are on that list, the may, might, would, could, should, etc. So this is a tense auxiliary. Whoops. Let's just do it this way, and then I'll fix it. Boop. Boop. Space. So that's still a tense auxiliary. This is a tense auxiliary. But what's different about these is that the subject isn't before. The subject is after. And you saw one example like this in your quiz, that the subject was after, and that's what happens in a question. In certain kinds of questions, not all of them, the auxiliary and the subject switch places. So we see that instead of the normal, like, I do not want you, blah, the subject's first, the auxiliary is second, the not is third, the want is fourth. Here we have the auxiliary first, the subject second, the not third, and the want fourth. So we still want to label this MV, and they're all bold. So we still see the verb phrases, but they're what's called discontiguous. That means they're not next to each other. They're interrupted by the subject. That's fine. I'm just showing you this because it's something I want you to be aware of. There is one line in the song that I'm asking you to look at that is like this. Okay. So again, this is an independent clause. What's this? It's the object. It's not functioning as the verb, and we looked a lot in the quizzes about functioning as a verb, giving the sentence the tense. This, you can tell a verb without tense because it will have a to in front of it. So this is what I want. It's functioning like a noun. I'm not going to call it a noun, but it's functioning like a noun, so we can ignore it. Ignore everything after your verb phrase. It's not relevant to what we're doing until you get to a period or you get to a conjunction. That's when it starts again. Okay. Finally, these are actually all independent clauses. So tell me, fine. I can say tell me. And there's sort of an implicit that you want me to tell, I want you to tell me something. So I'll do all these. I'm going to get rid of the highlighting in a second because it's distracting. Right. You know that you can do more, highlight more, and then just do everything and reverse it. Okay, so we've got the verbs. There's no subject, so all we have to do, say TV/MV, whoops. And that will be the same for all of these. And tell me the answer. You tell someone something. This is a verb with two objects. The answer sticking out at the end changes nothing about the subject. The subject is implicit. There is no subject. These are commands. There are no subjects. You can add it in. You tell me, but it sounds like a dog. Anyway, okay, just put a little subject in here, and then we're done. I'm going to put it in full screen. See? There we are. What do you think? Pretty nice, huh? By the way, title, good. Name and stuff, fabulous. Keep this information you have. Okay, so does that give you an idea how to do the markup part? You are going to have to do a write-up, but I think you can figure that out by yourself. I'm going to put a sample write-up up, I think, that you can look at of another different song. But really the questions on the sheet should guide you. So I hope that clears things up. If you have any questions, send me an email. I can also, if you want me to, I can also set up a discussion forum so you can ask each other questions. All right, good luck. Bye.